Hey, Gene.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
All right. Jumped the gun there a little bit. I had a delay on my end, so I don't know what happened in the beginning.
No
Anyway,
problem.
all right. Good to see you, man. How's things going?
Things are going pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. Not a whole hell of a lot to complain about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Busy time of the year with lots of stuff going on. I know you were at Expo West. Yeah.
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 I was at Expo, and I often say that Expo is not like a big innovation show. Natural Products Expo West, that supply side is more innovation, and it's true and it's not true. It's true in that you do see innovation, but it tends to be 2 or 3 years behind uh,
Yeah.
the supply side. But it's still interesting to see, and it's still a great place to
Mm,
go to have
yeah.
meetings with your customers and
Yeah.
make contacts and that sort of thing. So it's definitely a worthwhile event.
Cool. Well, that's good to know. I haven't been in a while, but it's kind of shifted more towards CPG and foods, all kinds of functional food type stuff. But it used to be
Oh yeah.
primarily supplements.
Well, that it's
But
been it's been a it's been a while since I would say it's been
yeah,
supplements. I think for a number of years it's really been all about the foods.
yeah, it's
And if you
primary.
look at the food section
Hmm.
compared to the supplement section, it's yeah, huge
Yeah.
difference.
All right. So this is another episode in our series called The Bioactive Inside.
Bioactive insight indeed.
Yes. And so this is our series where we more targeted towards the consumers. And today's topic is healthy aging. Gene?
Yeah. A big issue. I mean, there are the aging of America is well established, and when you look at our generation, the baby boomers, as we get older, and then not just ours. Now you've got the Gen Xers,
Yeah.
and everybody's aging, but you definitely have a lot of aging, a lot of more people that are classified as seniors now, and you know the the fact is, our generation especially has not wanted to go quietly. It wanted to stay young as long as possible, do
Yeah.
things to have an impact, whether it's
Yeah.
changing your diet, exercise,
Yeah.
supplements. They're always looking for ways to stay younger longer and also
Yeah.
address some of those issues of aging that we experience. And so it really is something that so many people are wanting to take an active role in changing in their
Yeah.
lives.
Certainly baby boomers and Gen X. And then even now, I would say millennials and Gen Z. There used to be a time, I
Yeah,
think, where people thought, at that age group, millennials and Gen Z think, well, I'm bulletproof. I kind of do that. But COVID kind of changed the
that
tune on
changed that,
that.
didn't it? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I can get sick. Oh, things can happen to me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So this changed. It actually, I just read an article about this that changed perspectives then in terms of aging and also putting changing the trend to be more proactive on on healthy aging and supporting the health up front. So
well,
that's
that's
cool.
right. And and if you look at the sort of the global healthy aging supplement market, it reflects that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're looking at if you the data from say 2022, not too long ago, we saw that global market 26.3 billion.
Yeah.
You know, and that is huge, and it's not done. It's expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of about 8.14%. Through 2032, where it's going to reach 50 over 57 billion. I mean, it's huge. It's an
Yeah.
enormous market. This means just what we were saying. People are very, very interested in dietary supplements that may help them with healthy aging.
Yeah. And I think it's the global market is about excuse me about 177 billion. So it's like 15%. it's a pretty good chunk,
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah, yeah.
includes that. Yeah. And so it includes, so what is healthy aging? What functional areas are we talking about? We're going to break it down into 4 key areas today because we're going to talk about each one separately because there's different ingredients and things that are targeting those areas. So the first is immune function. Okay.
Hmm.
Second one is antioxidant properties, right? So scavenging free radicals that do damage to cells, that sort of thing. Reducing inflammation. Inflammation is related to joint health and a lot of other processes with aging. So
Yeah, and
inflammation is,
that's how the term inflammaging was
yeah,
created.
yeah. Just recently, actually, I saw that. And then, of course, regulating metabolic processes. So, we're in an age of, we're talking cardiovascular disease, we're talking diabetes, these sorts of things. Of course, GLP-1 is huge right now. So all these things are, all of these areas here are 4 really important areas. And like I said, the perspectives changed with folks because they see after COVID that we're not bulletproof here, even the younger generation. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So,
All right,
yeah,
so let's jump into enhancing immune function, and we got some kind of key ingredients. Some of these you guys will know, of course, but we'll start with vitamin D is a big one, right?
oh, vitamin D is huge,
Yeah.
absolutely huge.
Anyway, so vitamin D, right? So, and again, a lot of these ingredients have multiple roles for functions in the body, right? Multiple functions and serve in a lot of different ways. So, but vitamin D, in relation to immune function, really helps in modulating the immune response, and of course, if we talk about that for a second, how does it do that? And again, we're not going to get too technical here, but it does interact with the receptors on various immune cells like B cells and T cells and antigen presenting cells. So it actually helps with the signaling of the immune system. So vitamin D is pretty important. It's not just bone health, right? Okay, it's not like drink your milk, get it from bone. It actually has a great role in terms of immune response. And then the next one there is, this one because we just did a show on that not too long
Sure.
ago.
Yeah, so omega-3 fatty acids. Speaking of inflammaging, I mean, omega-3 fatty acids, sort of its two biggest claim to fame areas have to do with, cardiovascular health and inflammation. And so it's really an inflammaging type of nutraceutical. It does have an effect on immune health. And, there's a lot of studies showing omega-3 fatty acids as being effective for different aspects of inflammation in different types of conditions. So that's a huge thing. And there's even research showing the benefit is enhanced when you combine it together with vitamin D, as
Yeah.
well as when you combine it with exercise, showing, there's some signs that actually may help to slow down biological aging. So both vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids are a big deal and are very highly recommended. And in fact, I might say that when I'm asked by people what supplements should I take, and if I don't know anything about them at all, and it's just a general question, the two things that I almost always recommend is vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids, because those are two things that Americans as a whole simply do not get enough of and tend to have a deficiency in. So
Yeah,
there you go.
I agree, and I can see why omega threes work with vitamin D because they also have to modulate immune response on the cells and stuff like that, the immune cells. So this is actually makes sense if you can think about it from in combination to have both of these things. And then, of course, biotics, a huge role there. Whether it's prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics, we've done a show about that before, and we're going to deeper dive into some biotics in future shows. But again, they have multiple benefits in the body in terms of that. But if the most important one is that 70% of our immune receptors are in the GI tract. So if we've got a healthy gut, healthy microbiota, we're obviously going to benefit. It's obviously going to benefit our immune system, right?
Well, that's right. And, just, to your point, you have all this all this immune health related benefits for the biotics. Not to mention, and even this is in the show on biotics, it bears mentioning that there are plenty of different types of probiotics with data on them showing roles that it plays in cardiovascular health, that it plays in cognitive health. So it really has multiple avenues of benefit with regard to healthy aging.
Absolutely. And there's even there are strains very specifically that have been studied for the immune response and have immunomodulatory properties. So, uh, certainly nobody's mapped out a lot of research in the microbiome now and microbiota. Nobody's mapped out what a healthy microbiota should look like within our GI tract. In fact, it's going to be different for different people. It's going to depend on their culture, their diet, all kinds of things is going to affect that. And even that within an individual changes periodically based on what's going on in their life, stressful events, or they're sick, or they're taking antibiotics, that sort of thing. So these are all. It's a very complex system, so it's not totally straightforward all the time about that.
And further to your point, while this hasn't all been mapped, we find that even in different regions, different countries, different areas of the world, you find a different profile, a different microbiome profile than you do in other areas. So the question is that a healthier one, or is that just specific to that region for whatever reason? So we'll find out more as we study further into this area.
Yeah, so for sure you should have biotics, some form of biotics as part of your regimen, your daily stack, along with omega-3s and vitamin D.
Absolutely. So the next area, antioxidants, is arguably sort of the first big nutraceutical area in our industry with regard to aging. In fact, I would say the thing that made it more of a household name was back in around 1980-81. The book Life Extension by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw came out, and that made everybody know about antioxidants and the importance of antioxidants in healthy aging. And that's the first time you started into the common lexicon hearing free radicals, and that sort of thing, and oxidation. And certainly we know that, free radicals and other kinds of oxidative compounds or molecules will come in and wreak havoc in the body, create damage. Now, of course, some of that oxidation is a normal part of human metabolism. It has to be there, but sometimes it gets out of hand and it has an impact, and we age faster because of it. There's a whole, free radical theory of aging. Things that can help with that, things that can help and have antioxidant properties include things like coenzyme Q10. Its role as an antioxidant is paramount in it, and you can find it right there doing a lot of what it does right in the mitochondria, the little cellular organelle that helps to produce energy for us. And part of that energy production generates some oxidation. So CoQ10 is actually good for energy, but it's good as an antioxidant and has cardiovascular properties and does so many other things. So CoQ10 is a great option. It's been shown to help in fatigue reduction and cardiovascular health, just a number of different areas. Definitely a contribution to healthy aging. You want to take the next one, Bill?
Sure. And again, everybody knows CoQ10 and probably thinks heart health initially here, but it's also, like you said, a potent antioxidant and as well. Resveratrol, which is a polyphenolic compound. It's predominantly found in red grapes or berries and peanuts, actually.
Peanuts as well.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. You mentioned about the history here with the book Life Extension, right? And then not too long after that, there were some studies that came out of, epidemiological evidence showing over many, many years the benefits of the Mediterranean diet, which is rich in fruits and vegetables. So those fruits are rich in, polyphenols, and of course, resveratrol is a antioxidant component in there, and it neutralizes free radicals. But there's a lot of in plants in general. There's a lot of polyphenols or anthocyanins or these as we call it, multi-ring compounds, to keep it simple for the consumers here. That so I'm not going to put on my PhD chemistry hat here too much, but they attack those free radicals and scavenge them. They gobble them up. Which what happens with those free radicals is they want to bond with something. So what happens is they get into the cells and they cleave DNA, and this is part of the aging process. So we're always exposed to these sorts of things in our environment and through things we eat and drink. But anyway, resveratrol is shown to definitely, multiple functional areas here, not only antioxidant or free radical scavenging, but also alleviates inflammatory responses, enhances mitochondrial function, that sort of thing, and regulates how do you say it? Apoptosis?
Yeah. Apoptosis. That's right. Yeah. It helps with that. That's basically programmed cell death. And it helps. Yeah. And something I got to say, we were talking about history, and you remember when you heard the French paradox, where, the French folk would have a diet that was higher in saturated fat, ate a lot of cheese, they would smoke, and yet their cardiovascular disease rate was lower than that in the U.S. That was referred to as the French paradox. You remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
And that was often attributed to, they drink a lot of red wine. The wine has resveratrol. Resveratrol is having this positive effect. And that's kind of what brought it as its big claim to fame. But it does something else, doesn't it, Bill?
It does. It activates sirtuins, which is particularly SIRT1. And that's been associated with extending lifespan and improving health span. And a lot of there's been a lot of research on this. So definitely what we're saying, some people still say anti-aging. That's kind of gone away, because if you're anti something, it's kind of the word doesn't really work. It's more about healthy aging. It's more about extending the lifespan and improving your health span, right?
That's right. I often use the term youthful aging.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So what's the other related to this is quercetin, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And go ahead. I'll let you run with that, man.
Well, quercetin is a really, really interesting compound, often referred to as a bioflavonoid or a flavonoid.
Yeah.
And it is found in a lot of different types of foods. And there's been a lot of research on it. There's been research on it as an antioxidant. There's been research on it as an anti-inflammatory agent, and research on it in the terms of different types of conditions. And you often find it together with resveratrol. I've certainly seen it there. Some of the data suggests that it may have a complementary effect to resveratrol. And so I think that it's a great combination to use resveratrol and quercetin together. There's even some different types of forms of quercetin. But this is really great. I just wanted to add one of the other things is that you mentioned the SIRT1 or SIRT1.
Yeah.
It's actually often referred to as the longevity gene. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And and quercetin is, it's in all my years of research on botanicals as well. It's abundant in many different botanicals, by the way. Yeah, it's in coffee, it's in echinacea, it's in a lot of different botanicals. And that makes sense. It's ubiquitous in nature,
I've often see it used as a marker compound for some of these plants. If they're doing testing in the lab, they can use that because that'll help them, because they know how much it's supposed to have. That plant's supposed to have quercetin. If you have that amount, it tends to indicate that the plant is what it's supposed to be.
Yep. And I think the last point I want to make about that is it's referred to as a senolytic agent, which means it eliminates senescent cells, which are like zombie cells. These are like the things cells that accumulate with age. This is why intermittent fasting works, because it gets a chance for your body to clean out detox those cells that are accumulating. If you're constantly eating, you have to keep processing food and using energy for that, then you're taking reducing the other systems in your body to help you reduce aging.
That's right.
So anyway, it's there's some research around that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've actually, just because of the company I used to work for, ended up formulating with a lot was collagen peptides.
Oh yeah.
And you can get sort of native collagen. You can get collagen peptides, which is just basically collagen that's broken down into smaller chains of amino acids, which are more easily absorbed and utilized. And luckily, there are a great number of studies that have been done on different types of branded collagen peptides. And collagen is a very prevalent protein that's found in our body. It's a connective tissue protein. It helps hold the cells together. You might think of it that way. If you had no collagen, you'd just be like the blob, a mass of cells on the floor wiggling. So you
Yeah.
need collagen. Now, collagen is found in skin, it's found in hair, it's found throughout your organs. But what it's most known for, it's most celebrated for, is the role that it plays in skin and joints. That's what it's most used for in dietary supplements. And in fact, there's a number of studies showing that depending upon the collagen peptide used, anywhere from 2.5 to 5 grams, sometimes 10, but generally 2.5 to 5 grams of collagen peptides are effective at helping to promote skin elasticity, or helpful at promoting hydration, reducing skin dryness, even helping to reduce some fine lines and wrinkles, which is amazing. And so it has, and there's even some research showing that it's been helpful with, you know, with sort of, with the little bits of fat that you find on the thighs, helping to make it less wavy and look a little better. And there's some research on it for nails and hair even. So, collagen peptides have a lot to do, but the joint, that's for sort of the beauty skin angle of it.
Right.
But then you have the joint angle. And there's a number of studies showing that collagen helps promoting healthy joints, because your joints has a lot of collagen in it, and anytime you can help in the repair of that, you can have healthier joints. Now, people often think that collagen in itself, you take collagen peptides, it goes right to the joint and does its thing, or goes right to the skin. It doesn't exactly work like that. There's two areas to consider. One is that the presence of the collagen has a role in actually stimulating collagen production in your body. And however, there are sequences of amino acids that are used in collagen production by our body. So if you take collagen, your body goes, oh, look, here's some of the amino acids I need. Isn't that convenient? I need just those amino acids for making my own collagen. So it can actually use those.
Yeah.
And it stimulates the production at the same time. So it's a fabulous thing. A lot of people are using it. It has a tremendous beneficial effect. So it comes highly recommended. Again, collagen peptides are a better choice than just a sort of a native whole collagen.
And I would loop into that other bioactive peptides. Okay, not just the collagen peptides.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of interest in this area in terms of healthy aging as well. So, just for example, there's a tetrapeptide called epitalon, all right, which is alanine, glucine, and asparagine, and glycine, and it's derived from the pineal gland, but it's actually been shown to be a potential anti-aging or longevity promoting effects, right? So by stimulating telomerase and regulating circadian rhythm. So you can see why there's a lot of interest in these bioactive peptides.
And I might just add that as we age, as with so many things, collagen production decreases. So it makes a really good case for using collagen.
Yeah, it does. So let's. I think we're moving into our third area here, which is inflammation, right? And at the top of the list for that is another friend from Ayurvedic medicine, curcumin, which comes from and the curcuminoids, right? Those classic compounds, which have been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects. Now, of course. You got to have the right ingredient or right supplement that's got a good bioavailable source here, because bioavailability
really do.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. But and if you think about it, it's pretty prevalent in Indian diet, of course, with curries and stuff like that. So certainly has some effect on longevity with certain cultures, because it's ubiquitous in the foods, spices or whatever. I use it quite a lot to cook with as well. And but again, it's one that helps reduce inflammation, and there's been some studies showing that, right?
Quite a
And
few.
yeah,
And what's
right a
interesting
few.
is the spectrum of studies. You find studies on it for certainly for arthritis, osteoarthritis,
Yeah,
uh, but you even find studies on it for sort of what we might think of as a healthier kind of inflammation, which is, let's say, you're overexercising, and so you have delayed onset muscle soreness due to overexercising. We've seen research showing that the curcumin has been helpful in that. But you also mentioned the bioavailability issue. This
right,
is a huge issue. It's not just a minor issue. There's been a number of studies published showing that when you take in turmeric, the curcumin content, you end up maybe having absorbing as little as 1% of that, or getting that into your body. So
right.
it can be a real difficult thing. So there's a number of different extracts on the market that do something to it, whether it's a liposomal thing or whether it's some other means where they do
Yeah,
something to help improve the absorption. And I'm sure both of us highly recommend going down the route of one of those evidence-based delivery systems that
absolutely.
help with that. So
Yeah, yeah,
a cool things too that, by the way, that a lot of people don't know is that besides all the wonderful anti-inflammatory effects, curcumin actually has some positive benefits for the liver. It actually helps to stimulate glutathione production, a powerful antioxidant that
yep.
is also involved in detoxification, one of the detoxification pathways in the liver. So really a tremendous nutraceutical to consider as part of your repertoire for healthy aging.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to mention. You started that is its antioxidant capabilities, either triggering, like you said, glutathione production, but also it also enhances vascular endothelial function. You know, the cells
Yeah.
and the blood vessels, which increases nitric oxide bioavailability, and that helps with reducing oxidative stress and stuff. So it has multiple benefits. Again, a lot of these things. And that's true for a lot of ingredients in the supplement space. They have multiple benefits. It's not just one-off sort of targets,
That's right.
because it's working in the body in multiple ways. And so anyway, so that's curcumin. And then of course, then we have omega threes again here.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about omega 3s already, but sort of just to reiterate, omega 3s work in a certain way that's a little different. It's not redundant to curcumin. In fact, it's complementary to curcumin.
Yeah.
It's not just taking two things that work the same. It works by having an effect on a certain enzyme that, as a result of that, you now have inflammatory chemicals that don't end up being produced in the same way by using higher amounts of omega-3. So the cool thing is you can use that together with different types of anti-inflammatory herbs like curcumin, like
Mm-hmm.
boswellia, like several others,
Yep.
and have it be completely complementary. And so, I would highly recommend that. There's research on omega-3s for things like inflammation associated with um, arthritis, and in several other areas, even some of the gut inflammation that occurs. So again, omega-3 is very, very important for inflammation.
Yeah. And I want to call out a study that was done on omega threes, and it was published in Nature Aging, and involves 777 older adults. Okay, so quite a large study. And what it showed was that daily supplementation with omega threes, especially when it was combined with vitamin D, which we mentioned earlier, and regular exercise, slowed biological aging by approximately 4 months over a 3 year period.
That's tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah. So should those things be part of your regimen? For sure, on a daily basis? And I know there's the camp that says, oh, well, you can get all that from your diet. Yeah, but people are not eating fish every day,
No, it's
right?
you're not. The
You
thing
know,
is, that's one of the issues here, where you have that camp that says, "Oh, just eat it in your diet." Well, that's great. If you had this really perfectly healthy diet, yes, there's a lot of things you might get. But the fact is, according to our own United States Department of Agriculture, only 10% of Americans are actually eating a good diet. So that
yeah,
means
that's right.
90% are not. So let's get back to reality instead of walking through life in rose-colored glasses saying, "All we got to do is this." Yeah, but people aren't doing that. So let's do something that we can impact in a positive way and help to mitigate some of these other deficiencies.
Yep, I agree. So let's move into our fourth area, which is regulating metabolic processes.
Exactly.
And anyway, what's at the top of our list for that one, Gene?
That's creatine. Now,
Yes.
oftentimes we think of creatine as something that bodybuilders use or young
Right.
athletes use.
Right.
And certainly there is a plethora of research demonstrating that creatine has some valuable functions for that. So creatine, but it goes beyond that. So let me say creatine works in a couple of different ways. One of the ways it works is it actually helps to recycle ATP. ATP
Yep.
is like our energy molecule.
Right.
And the way it works is it has 3 phosphates on it. And when you cleave off one of those phosphates, it's like giving you a spark of energy, if you will.
Yep.
So what creatine does is it acts as carrier and it can transport a phosphate, put it back. So now you can use that ATP again. That's a simple way of explaining it, but that's more or less how it works. And so it's going to be beneficial for energy, and there's studies for that. But we've also found that there's a lot of creatine present in the muscle, and creatine itself sends an anabolic signal to the brain by virtue of its presence. It sends an anabolic signal saying, repair muscle. Repair equals muscle growth. Okay, and so this is very, very important because it turns out that besides doing all this exercise, which causes your muscle to make it store more creatine, taking creatine as a supplement can have that same effect of stimulating muscle repair, having an anabolic effect. And besides the obvious of young guys in the gym wanting to work out and build muscle, we find that creatine is also extremely important in older adults. We have something called sarcopenia, or age-related muscle loss.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
And that can be positively impacted by the use of creatine. So if you use creatine, you're going to help maintain some of the muscle that you have. You're going to help to build new muscles. Now, it doesn't work in a vacuum. You need to do some exercise as well, especially strength training, but it'll help you maintain the muscle that you have. I might even add, if you are rapidly trying to lose, or if you're trying to lose weight rapidly, especially if you're doing a GLP-1 agonist drug or something like that,
right? Yeah.
You might want to consider using creatine because you will get lean loss of weight as well as fat loss of weight. So doing that can help. And there's research on creatine for cognitive function. So you got a nice 1-2 punch.
Yes, exactly.
And cognitive function, both vital for healthy aging.
And in fact, Gene, there was a research study done at the Mayo Clinic about that in sarcopenia, because it was showing that when it was combined with creatine supplementation was combined with strength training or resistance training, which is really important, by the way, for strength and bones, but also muscles. It enhanced muscle strength and functional performance, in older adults. So I'm in the gym 4 days a week, Gene. So I'm doing and I actually take creatine. People think of it as just for sports supplements, but no, it's actually much more than it's even more important for all older adults.
It is. And I just want to go out. I just want to make this statement. I'm not opposed to fancy schmancy forms of creatine, but I just want to make the point that creatine monohydrate, the first creatine, is still the one with the most research supporting it.
It is.
And so if somebody asks me, I'll say, use creatine monohydrate. It costs less, and it's still the one with the most research to support it.
Yeah, totally aligned with you on that one, buddy. All right. Okay, so our next ingredient is magnesium. Okay, so again, magnesium has so many roles in the body, right?
So many.
It's in supporting metabolic functions and promoting healthy aging. So, for example, we could go down the whole list, but it's actually an essential mineral in over 300 enzymatic reactions in our bodies. Okay, so again, you should be taking magnesium. A lot of times, if you're taking a multivitamin, you're not really getting enough magnesium because depending on the form or the salt that's being used in the formulation. So really important to have a good dose of that. I think I take 400 milligrams a day myself.
And that's 400 milligrams of actual elemental magnesium.
Elemental,
not 400 milligrams of a magnesium salt that might only yield 100
Exactly.
milligrams of magnesium or less.
Exactly.
And magnesium, good for so many things. Studies on it for helping with sleep, studies on it for helping with blood pressure. Now, think about it this way: if you are moving your muscles, when you sort of contract that muscle, it requires calcium ions to make that happen. But in order to relax the muscle, to let it go and go back the other way, that requires magnesium ions. So people often think of magnesium as sort of a natural muscle relaxer, if you will. And it is a nice sort of calming mineral. And so that's why one of the reasons you do find it in some sleep formulas. There are studies on it for that. And that's one of the reasons it's also good for blood pressure.
It targets the GABA A receptor, so that's part of the reason that it works that way for sleep. So,
so important for so many things, and research is very, very clear on this. Americans are not getting the recommended amounts of
I agree.
magnesium in their diet. So I would highly recommend people considering a magnesium supplement.
And one last point about magnesium in terms of its benefits in cellular aging. Okay, so it actually does have a role, in addition to multiple roles, in maintaining telomeric chromatin structure, okay, and integrity. So it supports telomerase.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having trouble talking right today. Regulation. Anyway, which influences the cellular senescence, getting rid of those zombie cells.
And we'll talk more about telomerase and telomeres shortly.
Yes, we will.
So the next area, which has sort of been somewhat popular in the last few years, are what we call NAD boosters. NAD stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And now you know why we just call it NAD. So NAD, NAD is part of the metabolic process that manufactures ATP, our energy molecule. And so you need to have NAD present. And the way it works is we get from our diet or from supplements we take vitamin B3 as niacin or niacinamide. The niacinamide, niacin will turn into niacinamide, and the niacinamide, it goes through a pathway where it becomes NMN, then it becomes NR, which is nicotinamide riboside, and eventually becomes an NAD. Now, that's going to help with energy, but energy isn't just like, hey, I feel good. It runs the machinery of your body. It's the power to run your body. It's like electricity to run everything. And if you don't have sufficient amounts, things aren't going to run as well. And what happens is lower NAD production is associated with aging. It's associated with many of the diseases and disorders of aging. So less NAD production as we age. If you could do anything to promote NAD production, it can make a big, big difference. And so it's often been considered one of those healthy aging goals. And so people will take often NMN. They will take NR to do that. And by the way, just in case anybody wanted to know, a real inexpensive, easy method for doing that is to take just plain old niacinamide. There's a nice published study showing that 200 milligrams a day of niacinamide increases NAD levels 30-fold in 30 minutes. So that's
pretty awesome.
So for pennies, you can do that. I'm not saying that don't use your NMN or don't use your NR. I'm just saying that you can get a really nice bump in your NAD for a very inexpensive.
And as we know, NMN has got a lot of regulatory scrutiny by the FDA, saying that it's not technically a dietary ingredient. But
they're kind of allowing it, but it's
it's in that gray area. But
it's nobody's a little iffy. Yeah,
it's a little iffy there. But again, there's still supplement products on the market that are NMN, which is a precursor to the manufacture of NAD. So that's actually very cool.
So you, my friend, should take this next one.
I shall do that. And that's peptides. And we already mentioned this already, but bioactive peptides are the huge, huge area. There's a lot of research going in this area. There's a couple companies that are doing research on this sort of functional area, the functional compounds. and involved in healthy aging. So again, there's a lot of research that shows that they also are important for modulating metabolic processes, right? Okay, which support healthy aging. So, for example, there's actually some research showing the development of some novel peptides that target AMP activated protein kinase, which is AMPK. And what is that? That's a regulator of cellular energy homeostasis. Okay, so there's again, this is a functional group or class of compounds that have multiple functions in the body. So exciting to see where this is going to go in terms of small peptides. I think it's Nuritas is actually deriving the small peptides or bioactive peptides from plant sources, right? Actually took a due diligence on their company a couple of years back. And so, yeah, they're doing some cool, interesting things there.
And don't forget, I mean, one of the ones that keeps coming up in the news all the time is GLP-1, which stands for, glucagon like peptide 1. And that is a big deal. And there's a lot of different kinds of nutraceuticals that are said to help stimulate the production of that, which, by the way, doesn't mean it'll actually cause you to lose weight. But yeah. So there's a lot of those areas to think about.
There's a lot. So stay tuned for that. There's a lot of research going in this area. I actually think, Gene, on the horizon, we might have some regulatory challenges there, depending on how
some of the claims that are being made. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, got to check the research. And Gene, you'll take our last one here for sure.
I will. So there is a there is a compound called with the unfortunate name of spermidine, and it has cousins, spermine and, wait for it, putrescine. Terrible names, but these are compounds that are found in virtually all cells of the body, are found in a lot of different foods, and we need it. It does many, many things for us.
It's a polyamine.
Yes, it's a polyamine for sure, involved in healthy aging, cellular homeostasis, cardiovascular health, a lot of different things. Now, kind of its big claim to fame has been that it helps to promote autophagy. Autophagy is that when we talk about cellular senescence and all of that, this plays a major role in all that, because what happens is spermidine stimulates autophagy. Autophagy is the process by which cells will break down old damaged cell parts and repurpose some of the little peptides and amino acids to help rebuild and sort of reconstitute the cell. Make it like rebuilding an engine that's getting old and needs some repair. And when you do that, the cell works better, everything's functioning better. And so autophagy is a vital process that takes place in all cells. Unfortunately, as we age, it's one of the processes that slows down. And that's unfortunate because guess what? In order to make NAD, you need good autophagy. By the way, in order for autophagy to take place, you need adequate NAD. So there's a sort of a biofeedback loop there where they need each other. So focusing on both of those areas at the same time makes a lot of sense. Now, enter spermidine. Spermidine stimulates autophagy. This has been shown in a number of different studies, mostly these epidemiological studies where they looked at the consumption of spermidine in foods and were able to say, okay, based on how much spermidine you're getting in and looking at autophagy in this population, we can see that people who are consuming more spermidine are having better autophagy. And that's great. However, interestingly enough, there hadn't really been any studies done on taking specific milligrams amount of spermidine as a supplement and testing it in people. And so plug for my company, we Nutrilite USA, we actually decided to do a study on that. We did a pilot study where we looked at the impact of spermidine. We found that 3.3 milligrams of spermidine from our Miracell rice germ extract actually had a very meaningful increase in a couple of different markers of autophagy, meaning it increased autophagy. So we were the first, to my knowledge, the only company who has demonstrated that with our material. So that's very, very cool. But another thing that kind of is interesting is a previous study we did in the lab found that it also helped to maintain telomeres. And so, just for those of you who don't know, telomeres are these little stretches of DNA at the end of our chromosomes, and those little stretches, we call them sacrificial DNA. When our cells divide, every time they
Yeah.
divide, they like clip off a little bit from the ends.
Exactly.
And if it clips off telomeres, those are sacrificial DNA, no harm, no foul. It didn't take anything that has genetic material in it, and it allows
Right.
the cell to keep doing its job. When it gets down to no more telomere, the cells can no longer divide, and the cells die, and so do you eventually.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so by maintaining that telomere length, by helping to build new telomere, it makes a difference. And this has been shown to help maintain telomere length, so help it to have less loss of telomeres. So it does both the autophagy angle and it does the telomere angle. And by the way, our studies also found that it helped to reduce inflammation. It looked at C-reactive protein, one of the inflammatory markers. It showed that. It
Yep.
showed that it was helpful for VLDL cholesterol, one of the bad cholesterols, as well as triglycerides, which we know are also implicated in these things. And it even helped increase BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is sort of a measure of cognitive wellness. So,
Yep.
very cool stuff. To me, a really good healthy aging ingredient that hits a lot of stuff all at once.
Yeah.
I like to use it in formulations, but there's many good ones. And I want to mention vitamin D also is very effective as a telomere promoter. There's been research showing that vitamin D has effects, and they can actually increases telomeric age, as it's referred to. And so actually is very, very good too. So that's a good thing to use in combination.
Very cool, man. Yeah. And by the way, this is kind of winding up our list here, but this is by no means a comprehensive list of types of ingredients and all the research that's happening out there on healthy aging. But this obviously is a big concern for consumers, and it is for most of us. We all the aging processes is like. I always think that somebody someday is going to actually invent the serum that creates immortality or something, where your cells are optimally working at a high level, and there's no degradation there. But and it can counteract all the environmental influences, right? Because remember, you can't change your genes, but you can modify gene expression either positively or negatively. So
that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining us today on healthy aging. We'll probably dive into this again, maybe some new research when it comes out. And curious to see the next studies you guys have on spermidine. That looks pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're doing some good stuff. There was another study we did too showing benefits for cognitive health. Actually showed about a 98% improvement in cognitive function over placebo in people with minor cognitive dysfunction just associated with aging. So that was pretty darn cool. Even showed it to be beneficial for hair and nails. So a pretty interesting molecule all in all.
Yep, it is. So very cool, guys. Consumers or you guys that take supplements, there's a good starting point for you to add to your regimen if you don't have it already, and do your research. Find really good branded ingredients that have research that are in the products. If you're buying products that just have a generic ingredient, commodity ingredient, it's questionable if you're going to get the benefit there. So, really do your research there.
And if you end up with some questions that you'd like us to address on a future show, please send it to us.
So absolutely. And any topics you want to see us cover on the Bioactive Insight series that you think would be beneficial, let us know. And then we have our other series, the Bioactive Breakdown. We just did that episode last week, which was on liver toxicity. We had a whole panel of experts on for that. And that's probably targeted more for industry professionals. However, anybody who's interested in deep diving the science should tune into that series as well.
Sure. And just to be clear, Bioactive Insight and Bioactive Breakdown are just both part of the Bioactive Nexus series that we do. They're just sort of dividing out how we're addressing some of the issues.
Exactly. And um, and of course, the other thing we should mention, Gene, is that we are now taking sponsors for the Bioactive Breakdown series. So anybody that is interested in doing sponsoring their own episode with their company and their team, we're open to doing that, as well as we'll let you know what subjects are coming up that we're considering for bioactive breakdown topics. So, for example, GLP-1, Gene and I are talking about that and to kind of deep dive into that. So we'll keep you notified about that and post that out there when we're starting to look for people who want to join in on that discussion. All right. And with
Sounds
that,
good.
I'll take us out.